It was a quiet evening in a small town where time seemed to move slower than in the rest of the world. The golden sun was slowly disappearing behind the old buildings, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. From the second floor of a modest house, a girl named Ariana sat by her window, her chin resting on her folded arms. She had been sitting there every evening for the past 3 years, not because she had nowhere else to go, but because someone had once promised her, "I'll come back before the sunsets start to look lonely." That someone was Ethan. Ariana first met Ethan on a rainy afternoon at the town library. She had been struggling to reach a book from the top shelf when a tall boy with messy black hair quietly stepped beside her and handed it to her without a word. "Thank you," she smiled. He nodded, slightly awkward. "You always read books that look too heavy for your hands." She blinked. "Do you watch me?" He scratched the back of his neck, embarrassed. "Not in a creepy way. I just see you here a lot." That was how their story began. Not with fireworks or dramatic music, but with a simple conversation between two strangers who didn't know their lives were about to intertwine forever. Their friendship grew quietly. They began meeting after school on a wooden bench under an old maple tree near the river. Ethan would bring 2 cups of cheap coffee, and Ariana would bring her latest book to read aloud. One evening, as orange leaves fell around them, Ethan suddenly said, "Ariana, do you ever feel like this town is too small for your dreams?" She looked at him thoughtfully. "No, I think dreams are only as small as the people who give up on them." He smiled, but there was sadness behind it. "I want to leave someday. I want to see the world." She closed her book and looked at him. "Then I hope you'll come back and tell me everything you see." He hesitated, then softly replied, "I won't just tell you. I'll take you with me." That was the first promise he ever made. Years passed, and their friendship slowly turned into something deeper. It wasn't sudden. It was in the way Ethan would wait outside Ariana's school even when it rained. It was in the way Ariana would save the best part of her day just to tell Ethan. One night, during the town's annual lantern festival, Ethan took her hand for the first time. The sky was filled with floating lights. People were laughing, music was playing, but Ariana could only hear her own heartbeat. "Ariana," Ethan whispered, "I think I've been in love with you for a long time." She didn't reply immediately. Instead, tears filled her eyes. "I was afraid you'd never say it," she whispered back. That night, under a sky full of lanterns, they became each other's first love. When Ethan turned 19, he received a scholarship to study engineering in another country. It was the opportunity he had always dreamed of, but it came with a painful cost. They sat on their usual bench, silent for a long time. "You should go," Ariana said, her voice trembling. "You've always wanted this." He shook his head. "What about you?" She forced a smile. "I'll be right here when you come back." Before leaving, Ethan stood outside her house and said the words she would remember for the rest of her life. "I'll come back before the sunsets start to look lonely." At first, Ethan wrote to her every week. Long letters filled with stories of new cities, strange foods, and sleepless nights spent studying. Ariana would read them again and again until the ink almost faded. But as months turned into years, the letters became shorter, and then they stopped coming at all. Ariana never complained. She told herself he was busy. She told herself love meant trusting even when it hurt. Still, every evening she sat by the window, watching the sunset. 3 years later, a letter finally arrived, but it wasn't written by Ethan. It was from his friend. Ethan had been in a car accident a year earlier. He had lost his memory. Everything after the age of 16 was gone. He didn't remember Ariana. He didn't remember the bench, the lantern festival, or the promise he had made. Ariana read the letter in silence. No tears fell. She simply folded the paper and placed it beside the hundreds of letters Ethan had once written. One quiet afternoon, as Ariana sat by her window like she always did, she saw a familiar figure standing at the gate. It was Ethan. Older, thinner, but it was him. He looked up at her window with uncertain eyes, like someone staring at a house that used to be home but now felt unfamiliar. Ariana's hands trembled as she ran downstairs and opened the door. He smiled politely. "Hi, I'm sorry if this sounds strange, but people told me I used to know you." Her heart broke, yet she smiled back gently. "Yes," she said, "you did." Ethan began visiting her often, trying to understand the life he had forgotten. Ariana never told him about the promises or the nights she cried waiting for his letters. Instead, she treated him like a new friend. They sat again on the old bench under the maple tree. They drank coffee. They talked about dreams. One evening, Ethan suddenly said, "You know, I feel strangely peaceful when I'm with you, like my heart remembers something my mind can't." Ariana laughed softly, hiding her tears. Maybe some memories live deeper than others. Months passed, and slowly, Ethan fell in love with her again. Not because he remembered their past, but because he fell for the same kindness, the same quiet strength, the same girl by the window. One sunset, Ethan stood beside her at the window and asked, "Why do you always sit here every evening?" Ariana looked at the fading sun and replied, "I was waiting for someone who once promised he'd come back before the sunsets started to look lonely." Ethan felt a strange ache in his chest. He took her hand gently. "Then, I hope I'm not too late." Tears finally streamed down Ariana's face as she shook her head. "No," she whispered. "You came back exactly when you were meant to." Years later, they would still sit by that same window together, watching sunsets side by side. Ethan never fully regained his lost memories, but he created new ones, memories filled with love, laughter, and quiet evenings with the girl who had waited for him even when he forgot her. And Ariana realized something important. Love is not just about remembering someone. Sometimes, love is about choosing the same person, again and again, even when the past disappears.